Okay, for this part now, part two, what we're going to do is we're going to create this button for sort movies and convert acronyms. The acronyms would be the PG-13 is what parents strongly caution, R is restricted, etc., etc. And we want those long names to show up here automatically. So by clicking this button, the names will show up. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So the first thing I'll do, which I guess the first thing that I'd like to see you do, watch this whole movie and then go back and do it step by step. So the first thing that you would do is you would add in these movie titles and then fill in, um, you know, I've got a dozen movies here, so put in a dozen movies or whatever you want, give them whatever rating that you want, and whatever ranking. Then in the section over here, put in what G, PG, PG-13R, and 17. And if you remember from your data validation, the easiest way to be able to enter this information is we would go to uh, data and go to data validation. Uh, Data validation, why am I not seeing it? Right here, sorry, right in front of me. Data validation, click on data, and then say that you want a list, and then where's the list? Then you would highlight this, and then make sure that it's got the dollar signs in there. If the dollar signs aren't there, hit F4, and then you hit OK, and then this becomes a drop-down list. So you can sit there and change any of these to whatever rating that you want. So put in whatever ratings, use the validation just to practice. So get this much done, all this section here, and let me change it to a light background here, and that would be step one. Then step two is we're going to sort the movies. And when we sort the movies, what we want to do is capture this in a I'm going to move this over to the side. What we're going to do is capture this in a macro. So what we'll do is we will turn on a macro. Remember, you're going to use the developer tab, and if the developer tab is not on, go to File, go to Options, go to Customize Ribbon, and make sure this developer tab is checked. Now what we want to do is record the macro, and we're going to give it a name. Since I've already done this and I've called this sort movies, I'm just going to reverse the name and call it movies sorted. If I want to give it a keyboard shortcut, I can. I'm going to put in a capital M. You'll notice that it kicks in the shift because control M is already used. So now control shift plus M is available. You can put created a macro to sort the movies by, and then put in your name and the date, whatever it is, and then we hit OK. And at this point now, this button is ready, is in the stop mode, which means it's on, because to click it would stop it. So I'll highlight our area here, go into data, and hit sort, and I want to sort based on the movie title. Because I had that highlighted, it understands that the top row is the labels. So by movie title, A to Z, and I click OK. So now all my movies are in alphabetical order, that the ranking is changed because we sorted them. So at this point, I'll go to the developer and say stop recording. So if we want to see that macro, I click on macros, and I see movies sorted and click on edit, and there's the code that we'd either have to know how to write from scratch, or we're just going to let the computer write it for us. All right, now we want to make a button and then be able to click it to sort the movies. So what I'll do is, in the developer tab, I'll go to insert and add a button. So I'll use the lower ActiveX control and put a button next to the one I've already done. I will go to the property here. I can leave this as command button 1, but I'll change the caption and movies sorted. So again, you can call it sort movies. I just can't because I've already got the example here. So movies sorted. So with the movie button highlighted, and make sure you're in the design mode, then I can double click it. It will bring up all my code, and so in that command button, this is the one that we just created. Notice it starts with private sub, then command button 1, and then the action is to click the button. So in here we'll say call, and then we call that movies sorted. And when I do that, then it's going to call that movies sorted macro. So whatever you named it, you're going to call it, and it will now execute it. So I can close this window and this window and turn off the design mode. And if I manually go back in, just so that you can see this work, I go back into my data, sort it, and put it back in based on the rankings, and put it back into its form. Now when I click on this button, see, they're all back in the right order. We could make another button. We could say movies sorted by movie title. We could make another button say movies sorted by ranking. So however we want to do it, we would just make a macro for each button. So that's part 2. I would then stop the movie and stop this video, and then go ahead and create all of that. Be sure and rewind and pause as you need to. For the third part, then what we're going to do is convert this acronyms. And this is going to be more involved because it's going to involve code. And since this isn't a coding class per se, I just want you to see how the coding works. I've written all the code out here for you. So let me explain the code. So to explain the code, let me zoom up a little bit, and then we'll scroll so you can see it. What we're going to do is we're going to write this chunk of code from the option explicit all the way down to end sub. So we'll put option explicit at the top, and then each time that we have a chunk of code, then we say private, and then a subroutine, and then whatever the name of the command button is, and then whatever the action is, and then we're going to then write the code. In Visual Basic, anytime that we want to put a little note or a little reference or a memo, you just put a single quote, and then the computer knows to skip that line of code. It's not going to execute it. And I want you to put them in, so if you ever go back and look at this, you understand what each section does. The computer will also skip blank lines, so use blank lines to organize this code so it's easier to read. The first thing we'll do then is dimension some videos in memory. So we have to tell the computer, I want you to go out in memory and make a location and call that location rating. And what kind of data am I going to store there? A string, so it knows how much memory to allocate. We'll do the same thing with dimension, and then we'll call it long rating, and then as string. Then what we'll do is we're going to assign the rating. So if we go back up and look and see what's in B2, it's going to assign the rating. So in this particular version, it's going to say take what's in B2, which was the G rating, and then take the value of that cell. So take the cell's value and put it in memory in the value rating. Then there's such a thing as a select case statement. So the case statement says, I'm going to give you all these different options and you check each one of those, and when it matches, then execute the code underneath. So we're going to check the value of rating, which up here we assigned to the letter G. So it says, okay, case G. And if that's true, then in this long rating variable that we declared up above, then put in the phrase general audiences. If it was PG that was in B2, then put parental guidance suggested, etc. At the very bottom, we say, and what happens if somebody puts in something like a Z or some random goofy number? So we can fix that and say, if there's an error, then if that's what the case else is. If it isn't G, PG, PG13R, NC17, then for anything else, show us that there's an error and put that error in the long rating. And then since this is in memory, then what we have to do is say, now take what's in memory and put it in the cell. So what we took was B2. We looked to see if it was a G. We told it now, since it's a G, put general audience in the variable. Now take that variable and put it into C2. So the value of C2. And then we hit end sub. The problem with that is it's only going to check and fix that one cell. What we want it to do is do B2, B3, B4. We want it to do all of these. So we have to switch this code just a little bit. And what we have to do is add this extra code. And I separated it off so that you have to make a conscious choice as to where everything is. So what we'll do is we need another variable. So we'll take this dim int x and it will go over here. So in this spot we'll type in dim int x as integer. We'll have to stretch this so it shows here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put in our inside a loop all this code. So this code that we had here, we're going to start a loop. So I'm just going to copy it, this first part, and we'll put it right here. And again, this will be green. So just to make it consistent, let's turn it. Oh, I don't want the background green. I want the text green. There we go. So we'll make it green. So it starts a loop to do all 12 movies. Now the problem is that we want this to be B2 the first time, then B3, then B4, then B5. So if we say int x is 2 and it's a loop, next time that executes this code, it'll be 3. It'll execute the code, come back up 4, then 5, and it'll do it until it reaches 13. And how does it know? Because at the very bottom, we're going to put this close the loop. So let's copy this and we'll put that right here. And again, the computer will do this automatically, but since I'm doing this with typing this in manually, then I have to change the color of the code. So it will change automatically. Let me lower this just a little more. All right. So we've got a loop, dim int x is integer, and it's going to start here at 2. It's going to execute this code. When it hits next int x, it'll repeat, and now it'll be 3. It'll go down, repeat 4, 5, 6. So it's just going to loop and loop and loop until it hits 13. Now what we need to do is say in that range, what I want you to do is instead of this being B2, it's going to be B, and then we're going to concatenate. So we use the ampersand int x dot value. So it'll say B, and then first time this will be 2. Next time it'll be B, and then this will be 3. Then B4, B5. And same down here with C2. Now this needs to be C ampersand int x. And now this is the code that we need to put behind this button. So let me show you how to make the button. I'll make it another one right here and then show you how to add that code. Alright, so to go back and make the code, we go to the developer, go to insert, tell it we want a button, we draw a button, we give it a name, we give it a name, so format the control, don't want to format it, we want to look at the properties. Then the name of this button, for this to work, I called this button CMD Convert Acronyms. So you need to make sure, and this is what most students forget, CMD Convert Acronyms. So you've got to change that, or you've got, whoops. Oh, since I've already got it, that's the problem. It doesn't like it. So we'll call this convert. CMD convert. All right. So we're good to go there. And since we got CMD convert here, then the caption can be anything you want. Now we need to make sure that down here in our code that that's going to match. Now we double click and we see convert, and right next to it, that's the final code. What I want you to do is to copy this. So type it all in. This will say convert instead of convert acronyms. Then you're going to type in dim rating as string, dim long rating as string. If you want these capitalized, then you have to type it in that way. Dim int x as integer. Put in a single quote, and then start a loop to do all 12 movie titles with the start in cell B2. Notice it turns green. Now you type in the code for int x equals 2 to 13. Enter. So you just continue on, and you're going to type in all of this code. So you can pause this video and just copy in the code. It's critical that you realize that if you miss one double quote and put in a single quote, or if you put in a comma when it needs to be a period, or a period when you need a comma, then the code won't execute. Coding has to be that specific, which is why you're doing this assignment, so you have an appreciation for computer coding. All right. When you get all done and get all the rest of this code in, remember it's on the main page, then you'll simply X out of here and then go up here and turn the design mode off, and then at that point you click the button and it puts all of the names in for you. So this one was already finished. You can see the results, and that is the idea of using Visual Basic code in a macro button. I know this is complex. I know this is going to drive you crazy, but that's the purpose of this being the last assignment. This is the wrap up, and you should be able to do this and then have an appreciation of what can be done. If it's not pre-written, you can write your own code. All right, good luck with this. Thanks.